Hello, students. We're back at a Monday. That means we get to do some more math. Yeah, that's everyone's most exciting part of a Monday, I'm sure. Remember that last week we worked with some uh, two-step equations. Two-step equations are just the equations that we did before, but there's an extra step being added in. And hopefully you worked through that and you did okay. I got a couple emails from some people that were confused, but I'm pretty sure they haven't watched the video. Um, this is awful hard stuff to do without a little bit of instruction for sixth graders. So we've got to make sure that those of you that are watching it are doing a good job, so that you can help some of your peers. I did put a little funny thing I stole off of Facebook again here. You can either have a nice day or you can help your child with their math homework. You can't have both. I think this is pretty funny. And I can relate to it as well as I'm sure your parents can. But when I had a fifth grader and a sixth grader and on through in our household, I was often asked to help with math, but that was usually as a last resort because parents and kids working together can often be a little high stress uh, area in a child's world. Um, I don't know why. That's a weird anomaly. Um, Working with my college age kid now, it's kind of a lot of fun to work with him and explain these things. And he's like, "Dad, how come I didn't know this stuff before? Or, why didn't you tell me that when we were working on this in high school?" And I'm pretty sure that we did go over those things. It's just that when you're at a certain age, it's awful hard to accept help from your parents and people that you know too well. Anyway, let's get on with the two-step equations and see what we can do. This worksheet here, remember the one on Friday was called a reteaching sheet, and this is actually the first part of it. And I can't imagine starting off like this in the classroom. So what I've done is I'm going to work the first problem with you. Pick one out of the second section, and then we'll work the three story problems down below. On number one, it says explain what was done to the first equation to get the second equation. And basically, because they have all that stuff there, that's probably a little intimidating to a sixth grader. But basically, what they're asking you to do is just solve this equation. So we're going to go about those steps in doing so. So I've rewritten it on a separate sheet of notebook paper. I think that's the best strategy almost always to do. And we'll start there with number one. Um, this is kind of an interesting thing I'll show you before we do get started, but I've got a collection of pens here that I use, and they're the different colors. I like to write my problems in black pen. It's the little gel pen there, and then I've got one just like it in red. That's kind of neat. My blue doesn't match, so if you've got a little OCD, this is going to bother you a little bit, but wait till I show you the next one. So I've got black, red, blue, and of course then you need the purple. Purple's probably the one I choose the most. I like the way it writes and it shows up well, but the different colors of gray could probably bother some people. So there's your little OCD attack for today. So let's start though solving this problem. We'll go with the blue pen here. And remember, with all equations, like the first step, hopefully you've taken notes on this, is to rewrite the problem. And I've done that. The second step is to identify the variable, which in this case is x, and the operation. Well, in this case, we've got two operations. We've got subtracting by 3, and we've got dividing by 5. Now, you remember that we talked a little bit about inverse operations, and this is working in the inverse of the order of operations. So the order of operations PEMDAS, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, you would work parentheses first, exponents, multiplication, division during the same step, and addition and subtraction during the same step. But you do the reverse of those when you're breaking the problem back down. This is like working backwards. So in this problem, we're going to do the subtraction first before the the division. If we were in the classroom and I wanted to take the time to do it, I would show you what would happen if you multiply by 5 first. And just real quick, I would show you that it would multiply here, but you also have to multiply here and here. You have to do to the whole side, and that becomes kind of a complicated thing. So that's why we choose to deal with this part first. This problem actually makes that look easier to work with. So the operation is subtract 3. We're going to do the inverse of that, which is to add 3. We're going to add 3 to both sides, and we're going to get this canceled out. This is going to go to 0, which means x over 5 is over here by itself. We can put the minus 0. By the way, if you put a plus 0, that's fine too, because it's exactly the same operation. And then we're going to go ahead and simplify over here. 12 plus 3 is 15. So if you noticed in the instructions, it said explain what was done to the first equation to get to the second. So the first thing, and you don't really even have to solve this on that paper, but the first step that you did was you added 3 to both sides. So that's what you would write on that, added 3 to both sides. Okay, then we've simplified. You can write that in if you want. I don't believe I would need that on your paper to do that, because we're talking about the 2 steps. This is the first step. The second step is to get rid of the 5. Here's the variable x. The operation is division. What's the inverse operation? Well, it's multiplication. So we're going to multiply by 5 on both sides, times 5 times 5. This cancels out. So then I'm going to have x equals, well, what's 15 times 5? 75. I use the clock. We've talked about this in class before. This is how I do it quickly. 15, 30. Here's a 15, here's a 30. 0, 45, 60, 75. So I just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 5 sections. Okay? X equals 6 or 75. If you work that problem back through, you'd put the 75 up here. 75 divided by 5 is 15. 15 minus 3 is 12. Your answer, x equals 75. Okay, so they gave us that in the first place. The first step was to add 3 to both sides. What do we do right here? We multiplied by 5 on both sides. Okay, step in here was just simplification. And same right here, simplified. So these are the main 2 steps you'd write if you were writing this on your homework assignment. If you're one of those kids that just started paying attention, you'd be like, so what do I put? Well, what you'd put here was add 3 to both sides and multiply by 5 on both sides. Okay. On number 2, we don't even have to solve it. That's not in the instructions. We don't even have to solve it. So let's figure out what we do. You've got the variable x. X is being multiplied here. 7 is being added on to that here. So to work backwards through the problem, first thing you would do is the inverse of 7, which the inverse of adding 7 is subtracting 7. And the next step would be to get rid of the 6, which would be the inverse of multiplying by 6, and that's divide by 6. So subtract 7 on both sides, divide by 6 on both sides. Down here, you've got adding 2, so you're actually going to subtract 2 on both sides first, and then over here, multiply by 3 on each side. So remember, you're choosing the opposite operation. Okay, so we got through number 1 and that first set, and I picked number 9 because number 9 has a little anomaly in there, and I can do some of the others if you end up having some trouble throughout the homework, but let's just start with this one. On number 9, the first step is to get rid of the 18. We're going to subtract 18 from both sides. And you notice this is 0, but so is this over here. Some kids get really confused because they don't write that part down. If you write that down, then you've got this on the other side of your equation. So now we've got 15u plus 0 equals 0, or just 15u equals 0. Here's the thing. How do we get from 15 to 0? Well, you're going to multiply by 0, right? So most of you already have the answer here. And as you get a little bit older, you're going to not have to write that step in. But since we're practicing in 6th grade, you need to make sure that you know what to do. Here, 15 is being multiplied by u. You're going to have to divide by 15 and divide by 15. Well, 0 divided by 15, if you have nothing, you can't really divide it by 15. Or if you do, let's say you have $0 and you have 15 friends, you're not going to give your friends anything. Your friends are each going to get 0, right? So that's where the 0 is. Here's the u. By the way, 15 divided by 15 isn't 0. It's 1, and that's why that u stays there. So 1 times u is just u, and u equals 0. It sounds like a bad punchline to a bad joke. So solve the problem. Quick review, 2 steps. First step was subtract 18 from both sides. Second step was to divide by 15 on both sides. Okay, and then let's go down to number 13. I've got 13 set up in a diagram to help us kind of explain that, but we need to read it out loud. Those of you that are in my reading teams, and we were reading the book Grenade, and the main title character was Hideki, and that's the subject of this story problem here. Hideki baked 41 cookies. He gave the same number of cookies to each of 5 friends. So it doesn't tell you how many cookies he gave to each of his 5 friends. He gave, it could be 2, it could be 3. We don't know yet. But he did save 11 cookies for himself. How many cookies did each friend receive? So our goal, our variable, is how many cookies each friend got. But we know 2 things. We know first how many he did, how many he baked in the beginning, and then how many he saved out for himself. So if we were working with this problem without an equation, we would just do that in different steps. And so I've kind of outlined this. Here's this big circular pan of cookies. There's 41 on there. I just represented 1 because I didn't want to count 41 circles. But those are cookies. These are the friends. And this is Hideki's 11, so he's taking these out. Now, most of you have already done this arithmetic problem. You've said, well, let's go ahead and take that amount out, 41 minus 11. 41 minus 11 is 30 cookies. Okay, that means you're going to split that 30 cookies 5 ways. Well, that's really not hard to do, right? If you have 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, well, that's just a division problem. So 30 divided by 5, that means there's going to be 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. That's a total of 30 plus 11. We get back to our original 41. So what this looks like in an equation is you've got these friends and you've got cookies, and you don't know how many cookies each friend has. You know that you have 5 friends, but the variable, the thing you don't know, is 5 times what? How many cookies? You do know that whatever that 41 is going to be subtracted from. So this is a little bit trickier. Whatever this amount here is, you're going to add 11 to it, because this is the amount of cookies plus 11, which is 41. Another way to look at it is to take and start with your 41. That's how the problem started. 41 minus 11 equals 5 times your variable. Now, if I was doing this problem, I would choose cookies. You could use F for friends, but friends is really represented by the 5, so I would use 5C. And then you can do this step first. There's not a lot of, this isn't particularly a 2-step equation. It's an arithmetic sequence on that side. Okay, I believe if you followed through with that and then you still don't know the answer, we had how many cookies did each friend receive? This is each friend. Each friend is going to receive 6 cookies, so make sure that you report your answer out. 6 cookies. Okay? All right. We need to look at number 14. And let's see, I'll probably write that right on the paper. I like to use pencil on the actual assignment because I will make a key out of this one, and I want to be able to write the key where I can quickly see the correct answer and not have to sort through a lot. So 14, Estelle is buying dresses by mail. Already, just by reading that statement, we know that they're probably not going to tell us how many dresses. So let's go ahead and read the whole thing. Estelle is buying dresses by mail. She pays $65 for each dress, plus a shipping and handling charge of $8 for the entire order. If her order cost $268, how many dresses did she buy? Okay, so we don't know how many dresses. So that's our question mark. How many dresses? That's our variable is D for dresses. Okay, but we do know how much she's going to pay. She's going to pay $65 per dress. That's a multiplication problem right there. I got to move my paper a little bit. We also know that she's going to have a shipping and handling charge of $8 for the entire order. So once you get that total amount, you're going to take off $8. Okay? When we do know the total, I should be labeling these. This is the variable. Now, you wouldn't have to label this stuff, but it does help to get it organized on your assignment. This is our cost per dress, and this is the shipping and handling, and then we've got a total, and they told us that, and it's $268. Remember these problems, unless there's a problem that they've given you to trick you up or something, all these problems give you all the information you need to solve this. So there's a lot of stuff in here. Your total for the whole thing is going to end up being $268. That's your total. And the total is going to be made up of 2 things. Your shipping and handling. I'm going to put that over here. Shipping and handling. And, which is a plus sign. And the amount that you spend for each dress. Or the amount that you spend on the dresses. And so that is this cost per dress here, which is $65D. Okay? Shipping and handling was $8. Now, the reason why over here we wrote this as a -8. It's taking it away, but it's taking away from the total price. When you're being charged for it, it's the $65 per dress plus a charge, right? Which ended up being this total amount. So basically, I've set up my equation here. 65D plus 8 equals my total for the stuff. So this is how many dresses you have. 2-step equation, the first thing you do, subtract the 8 off of this. So that would be, I'm going to go ahead and solve it down in this space that you can't see. Here, let's cheat and add in a new paper. So first step, rewrite the equation. So I'm going to write 65D plus 8 equals 268. My variable is D. My operation is addition and multiplication, but I'm going to do the opposite by subtracting out the 8 on both sides. That makes that 260. That's an easy arithmetic problem. 65D. And then I've got to do a little division problem here to find out how many times 65 goes into 260. That doesn't automatically enter my head, so I go 260 divided by 65. I look at my 6, that goes into 26 4 times, so hopefully this will be really close. Looks like it's going to hit it. 4 times 5 is 20, carrying my 2. 4 times 6 is 24, 25, 26, and it's going to be even. So it looks like my D, after I've divided out my 65 here, looks like my D is going to be 4, which means my answer is 4 dresses. Okay, Estelle's buying 4 dresses. The hardest part, setting up the equation. You do not have to go through that. You don't have to write that down for number 14. You can solve the problem in any way that you want. If we were in the classroom, I'd work you through this a little bit more, and I probably would require this step. Number 15 is very similar to both of these, except they actually give you the equation, and you're going to plug in the height of the tree, which is 39. Okay, and then you're solving for the variable n, which is the number of years. So they've given you the equation. You substitute in 39 for your answer over here, and then you solve to find out how many years it is for n. Okay? As always, if you have any concerns or questions, email me. I know that some of you might get a little irritated, but the very first thing that I do when you email me, very first thing I respond with is, have you watched the video? Very few of you answer that question. And that I don't know if you're watching the videos or not. If you're not, then you're obviously not seeing this. But that's the key. That's the key to the whole thing, is watching the video and understanding it. If you don't understand parts of the video and you've watched it and you don't understand parts of the assignment, please let me know. We'll get all that taken care of.